Alright lads, Surf and Storm, Planetside 2's next major game update has arrived to the live servers, and there's a bunch of stuff we need to go over. From the release of the Corsair naval vessel, to updated underwater combat, I'm just going to call it like it is. This is the Oshur 2.0 update. Everything in this update is designed with the intent of giving Oshur, which released at the start of the year, a facelift. If anything, this is a Phase 2 update. So, does it land on its feet or sink to the bottom of the ocean? G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today let's take a look at the latest update to have graced Planetside 2. Right, so obviously on the surface, this seems like a pretty big deal for the game. You know, a new theatre of war, a new vehicle, some revamps to a brand new continent, as well as some stuff coming later down the line. However, the scope of impact that this update has on the game is actually limited by the fact that a lot of this new content is designed to only work with Oshur. As I said before, this is very much an Oshur Phase 2 update. So just be prepared to wait until you actually get a chance to play on Oshur before you get to actually enjoy the new content. I just felt like it was a good idea to ensure that some expectations were tempered for any enthusiastic planet men looking to make a return with this update. And speaking of the update, let's get into the details here. And I think it's only fair that we start off with the quote-unquote flagship here. And yeah, pun intended. The Corsair amphibious assault craft, the first dedicated naval vehicle courtesy of Nanite Systems, has come to Araxis. As a quick rundown of the vehicle, this is a common pool 8-seater transport vehicle comprising of 1 dedicated pilot, 2 gunners, and 5 transport seats that are each equipped with a catapult system that can launch players a distance in excess of 250 meters in a direction of their choosing. It's the main selling point of the vehicle, and it lets crafty squads of soldiers launch themselves great distances to engage bases and points of contention from new angles. Additionally, it has access to a proximity repair and ammo dispense abilities similar to that of the land-based Sunderer. And as the icing on the cake, squad members of the pilot can spawn directly into this vehicle, allowing for easy and consistent access to that catapult system. As far as the offensive capabilities are concerned, you have access to the weapons outlined on your screen now. Nothing has changed here since we last looked at the vessel during its testing period. There's no denying it, this thing is simply a smaller, slightly faster version of a Sunderer that operates exclusively on the water. And some of the first battles I have had with this thing so far have been very reflective of that. Have you been in a Sunderer battle bus column lately? No? Well, the combat experience of the Corsair is very much just that all over again. Both times I've been in battles involving actual Corsair combat has just been 2 massive fleets of these things clashing and flailing away at each other until one side hits that juicy critical mass point. Considering that, as we said before, these Corsairs can run proximity repair and ammo dispensers, and more importantly, engineers can't repair these vehicles because, well, there's no ground to stand on outside to repair the vehicle from, it's important to stick together and work as a team in these quote-unquote naval battles. As soon as someone gets isolated out from a group, they are a sitting duck and are normally picked off pretty quickly. I can only imagine how weak these vehicles would have felt if they were still moving at their previous speeds that they were on the test server. Oh, sorry, that's a detail I forgot to mention. These vehicles have had some speed improvements since their time on the test server, with top speeds now being around 30 kilometers per hour faster than what they were previously. Anyway, it has to be said here that when 2 of these fleets of relatively equal size clash, it's a pretty fun spectacle to enjoy, especially when factions start to intermix with each other and boats are just flailing around all over the place. Things get pretty chaotic pretty fast. You know, I see a bunch of boats circling each other with a bunch of tracer fire between them all, and the simple monkey brain of my part just goes, heh, this is fun. Even though the actual combat experience and the depth of the combat experience here with the Corsair is pretty shallow, I'll be honest, there's not exactly a lot you can do as an individual player or an individual squad in the Corsair, except for, you know, team up with a bunch of other Corsairs and focus fire somebody. There's some fun to be had here at times, I'll admit, like, you know, again, if I just enjoy the spectacle of it, I find myself enjoying it. But I have to say though, my personal highlight relating to the Corsair so far hasn't even come from the actual combat with the Corsair itself. It's from the catapult system. And it was quite simple really. We were getting shelled by some prowlers from a nearby hill and I decided I'd had enough of it. So I jumped into one of the catapult seats as a light assault, primed the cannon, and launched myself at Mach 5 with nothing but malicious intent, and managed to fly myself on over to the prowler and take one out with C4. I was giggling like a schoolgirl after that one, and it was a pretty fun moment. So yeah, on first impression, I'm having some fun with the Corsair naval craft, but I also anticipate that the novelty of these large-scale boat battles will just slide off a cliff over time, and will eventually return to seeing these vehicles used a lot more sparingly, maybe even exclusively for their logistics-heavy role. Being the only naval vehicle in the game, and then only having a limited amount of weaponry available to it, it's a relatively shallow combat mechanic, and I feel like the replay value and the depth of the vehicle might be limited as such. I don't see people spending time getting exclusively good at Corsair combat because the depth of the mechanics with the Corsair just doesn't allow for that to happen. So I feel like the playtime with these things is going to be limited in due time, but we'll see how things go. But while that is what is happening on the waves, it's not all what this update brings. Let's dive below. Underwater combat and the way it works has seen some updates to make the space actually viable for combat. This includes changing the movement speed penalty when underwater from 60 to 45%, allowing most small arms and max small arms weaponry to fire underwater, allowing a long list of deployables to work, adding a small handheld diver propulsion device to all non-light assault classes, so on, so forth. We aren't going to be spending time going over all of the little intricacies of the space because we've done that already in a previous video that is linked in a card above, but it's worth noting that since that video, standard small arms weapons that aren't listed as amphibious weapons have had their effective ranges increased to encourage a more diverse ecosystem of weapon use down here. From my testing, non-amphibious weapons seem to now be effective out to around 50-ish meters, which is a surefire improvement over the original 30 meters that was on offer prior to the change. Oh, and as another note, if you guys are looking for a free weapon to use underwater and you don't have anything in your arsenal yet, use code SURF2022 in the in-game store to unlock a free UBR 300 Swordfish amphibious rifle. But anyway, back on track here. The big question here, what's the point of all of this if there's no spaces to fight underwater? Well, my curious friend, this is where some of the changes to Oshur as a continent come into play. A total of 9 new seapost facilities have been added to the map, all of which sport single capture points under the water for infantry to battle over. These bases are as per follows. Seapost D8, codenamed Collapse, which is a derelict aquatic research site. Seapost G8, codenamed Pipeline, is the site of a sabotaged pipe network. Seapost G6, which is codenamed Trenches, covers deep grooves into the ground. Seapost J7, codenamed Garden, is an open coral rock garden. Seapost L8, codenamed Cliff Dive, is a capture point settled beneath a cliff's edge underwater. Seapost J8, codenamed Delve, is an underground cave network under the water. Seapost I11, codenamed Stones, is surrounded by teeth-like spires of rock protruding out of the water. Seapost G11, codenamed Reef, is a coral reef with gentle line of sight breaks. And Seapost H10, codenamed Debris, is a site of a few failed delivery attempts sporting a bunch of vehicle derelicts underwater. All of which seem to have interesting layouts of point of interests that aim to create some fun little infantry skirmishing environments without interruption from vehicles and force multiplier spam. At least that's the intent here, but how does it all work out? Well, I'm really in two minds about these spaces, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. On one hand, at a surface level, yes, these end up being spaces where infantry can do their thing without interruption from, say, someone chilling in a deployed Hesh Prowler from a kilometer away, just denying access to the entire base. Having dedicated play spaces that gives certain elements of the game areas to shine, as well as quote-unquote combined arms spaces, is a good balance to strike. I also like that the effective range of small arms weaponry has been made a little bigger, giving more variety to the weapon ability under here. I find myself enjoying those elements of the space, especially when I can actually get down to the bases and the environments. The layouts and designs of the play spaces so far I found to be fun to play around in as well, at least in my limited playtime with them. However, on the other hand, there's some issues down here that need to be addressed. One of the more immediate ones is something that we actually hinted at a couple of seconds ago, reaching the damn sea floor and the fight as a result. If you're defending a sea post and the only spawn you have to work with is the sea post hard spawn itself, good luck reaching the sea floor to actually fight people. The travel down to the sea floor makes you a sitting duck, and because everyone knows where you land, because well, they can all see you landing, if you aren't taken out before you land, you'll last all of 6 seconds on the ground itself. We need to see either one of two things happen here in my opinion, or both of these things happen. A teleporter room that takes you straight down to the seafloor that gives defenders easy access to the actual fight itself, and depending on the location of that teleporter room, more cover that defenders can work around to actually get closer to the capture point, because there's a lot of dead air between, where defenders actually land on the seafloor and where the actual points of interest are. However, at the core of the experience here as well, I find myself asking if the underwater combat mechanics try to reinvent the wheel a little bit too much here in attempt to create this unique environment. Obviously, there's a lot of restrictions here as to what can and can't be used underwater. This even goes as far as to removing the ability for heavy assaults and infiltrators to use their class abilities entirely. So, straight out of the gate, there's really no point to running these classes at all. Throw in the fact that the heavy assaults can't use launchers under here either, and well, that class is well and truly useless. Depending on your personal view of the game, you might view this as a good thing, but it does essentially dial the game down to 3 classes effectively and a max suit, eliminating some of the playstyles here completely. And on the topic of max suits underwater here, when the change was made to small arms weapons to be more viable underwater, max units were treated to a nice bump in their effectiveness as well and were sort of encapsulated within that change. And I really wonder whether or not these things should be a factor in this play space in the first place here. We have to remember a couple of things here, guys. Things like anti-material rifles and rocket launchers aren't able to be used down here, which means that you are either limited to C4 or just wailing away at a max suit with small arms fire until they keel over. That's a big part of the anti-max balance in the game, completely wiped from the play space. Now yes, conversely, engineer repair tools are disabled down here as well, which means that max suits are going to be inherently less tanky. But there are also some ways to get around that lack of engineer support as well, which just means a couple of seconds of downtime before you're ready to go again. The nano auto repair slot becomes a thing, and of course you have the berserker implant, as an example, which I have on my TR character and was able to use to great success when I was playing my TR max suit. And with the slower movement speed that comes with this space, if a max suit catches you in their crosshairs, good luck actually running away from it. That just doesn't happen down here. Basically, unless a max unit is close to dead and you can finish it off with small arms, or you happen to be above it or close enough to use C4 on it, the max suit automatically wins down here, and all of the tools you normally have to counter a max suit at range, you don't have down here. So we have a space where you can't get close to a max to use C4 in a lot of the situations, but you don't have the ability to engage a max at range while it just tears you down. And on the flip side, the max unit is basically limited to running nano auto repair unless you have enough money spent on the game to get the berserker implant, making the suit itself just a pain to use as well. It just seems like an attempt to force a max unit to be viable in this play space without it actually being an enjoyable experience for anyone, with the exception of the few whales in this game that were able to grind out or RNG their way to the berserker implant. If we're stripping a bunch of elements from the game in this space, it just seems a bit strange to me that we're drawing the line with max units. But anyways, moving away from the finer details here onto some of the more sweeping elements of the underwater combat arena, I also wonder whether or not underwater combat as a whole has gotten the pace of gameplay right in general. Planetside's gunplay is tried and tested, has been for years, and the mix of TTK and movement opportunities in this game is a recipe that has kept many players coming back over the years to hone their skills. When we move the global movement speed down and slow the pace of the game right down, but we keep the time to kill the same, it throws the balance of counterplay opportunity completely out the window. If you start taking fire down here, chances are you're dead unless you are right near some cover, because the movement speed ain't gonna let you break that line of sight in time. Ironically, I remember back when everyone was complaining about the idea of nanoweave being nerfed or effectively removed from the game, and how it'll make the game more cover-based and slow, where in reality, the underwater combat environment has done that instead. And look, there's some value to encouraging a more methodical approach down here, encouraging more use of cover, so on and so forth. But I'm not quite sure if the movement speed of the space matches the gunplay and the feel of it quite right yet. I feel like things are unresponsive when it comes to movement, and considering that the audio space in the underwater combat environment as well makes it basically impossible to work out where friendlies and foes are on an audio front, there's a lot of situations where you'll die from angles that you simply didn't know existed, or you simply were just flanked by somebody who happened to jump out of a Valkyrie from the air, and you didn't know they were there because, well, they had no unique audio profile to their weapons firing, and well, you can't move to cover to counterplay them because, well, there's no movement opportunity down here. I feel like things could move a tad bit faster without breaking the slower pace of things that the devs seem to be aiming for here, at least so it feels more in line with the game's core time to kill that the underwater space adopts here too. When you change your movement functionality, but not your time to kill space, I feel like problems exist. Anyway, underwater combat and boats are the two big ticket items here, which is why they took up so much time in today's video. But there are a couple of more highlights, for better or for worse, that we need to talk about here quickly before the end of the video. For one, the return of the maximum pressure alerts, which for those who don't know, are essentially a mini event that triggers that, is a kill competition between the three factions, and where max suits become free for the duration of the event. Was personally really hoping that these were done and dusted forever, but hey, a man can dream. Guess I'll just work on Araximing my masthead, or become the max main for the alert that I was always destined to be. Truth be told, with the way max suits are in this game right now, I'm not really happy these are back, but here we are, so what can you do, right? Oh, and Outfit Wars enlistments are scheduled to commence August 3rd, ladies and gentlemen, so that is approaching fast. Stay tuned for announcements regarding that real soon, and my involvement in Outfit Wars. I'll have some good stuff for you guys this time around. So folks, that is going to wrap up today's video. As you can see, this one went on a considerable amount of time, so apologies for that. Bit of a longer one for y'all today. Lots of things to go over in relation to underwater combat and the boats, so if you enjoyed it, please feel free to backhand the like button, guys. It goes a long way. Let us know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on the updates so far. Do you like underwater combat? Do you like the Corsair? Or is everything a total flop to you? As always, if you really enjoyed the content and you're new here, consider subscribing. And as always, check out all of our social media links, linked down below, guys, because that also goes a long way in supporting the channel. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.